Hello and welcome back to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Chris McKinney from Nolan Financial Partners. If you'd like to hear more information about what you're going to hear on today's show, give us a call at 719-210-4242 or visit us at our webpage, nolanfinancialpartners.com. And while at our website, click on the radio page, check out our past shows, subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions or set up a face-to-face virtual meeting. There's a good chance that at some point in our lives, many of us will become an executor of an estate. Certainly, this is a significantly big responsibility, right? It's been given to you by someone that has complete trust in you. It's probably a family member, whether it's an aunt, uncle, or your parents, spouse, something like that. You're going to be taking care of them, their wishes after they're gone. And you have the balance of their legal and ethical responsibilities put upon you. So that's kind of a big weight. So we're going to talk about that during today's show, talk about how to approach this, how you can make serving as executive of an estate a little easier. Even if you aren't anticipating becoming the executor of an estate in the future, I think today's show can offer some ways you can help prepare your own estate prior to your passing, or maybe give a little compassion to the executor of estate that you're involved with, right? So before we begin discussing today's topic, let me introduce you to my co-host, Tony Shore, who seems very relieved to have traded his winter clothes in for some stylish spring threads.
Well, I'm no GQ model over here. That's for sure. But yeah, I'm the short sleeves and the short. I had to dig out the short pants, Chris. That's
Oh, yeah. So in Colorado, we start wearing those in about February, depending what the
yeah,
sun's at.
yeah. And when it's above 50, yeah, it's a
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
time for the shorts and the short sleeve shirts. But yeah, and I can't wait for the topic today because obviously this is a big one, and I'm going through this. I went through it with my grandfather, helping my dad
Oh,
navigate, and his brother and sister were the executors, and I see what's going on with my parents. So this is top of mind for me. Let's just put it that way. This is a topic that hits close to home, and I happen to be dealing with it, ongoing right now. So
right. So I'm not the executor of my father's estate. My sister is. My father is, he's in hospice at this point.
sure,
So I know we all know it's coming, but about
right,
5 years ago, I sat down with my dad and we got out a product that we have here in the office called From the Heart Journal.
yep,
And we went through and filled out all the relative information that somebody might need to be the executor. And so that's going to be really helpful in the future. And it's already been helpful because it's a document that we can go to help. Oh, what's that? What's that phone number for that company? What's that account number for that company? It has all that information in it. So if you want to hear more about that, listen to the show. We've got a lot of good tips for how to build a good plan for yourself, right? So this is kind of about planning.
yeah, it really is, and being prepared. And I think as we dig into it, obviously, I know you're going to talk about the importance of communication and understanding it. So whether you want to get your ducks in a row to make sure you don't leave your family and the executor of your will in a bad situation, or if you should be named executor of a will, which, if you have parents, you could very well be. A lot of people think, oh, I'll probably never be. Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of people end up being executor of someone's will, whether it's a parent or a sibling. So,
That's right.
or your spouse. So, I mean, these things happen, and it's good to know them regardless. So, I'm glad we're talking
Yes.
about this today. So, it's an important topic. Where do you want to begin, Chris?
So the first thing I want to begin is if you're the executor, you want to set the expectations for all the people that are involved with the estate. You want to talk to everybody. Hopefully, you can get them in a room. If not, talk to them individually. Set expectations about what you're planning to do, how you're going to do things, the timelines, how you're going to communicate what's happening. so that they understand what's happening. It's one of the biggest things is if there's different expectations in the room, then that can create a lot of strife. So if you start getting other people's expectations out, first you kind of set the tone as the executor, and then if you're not the executor and the one in the back, make sure that the executor understands your expectations so you can have that understanding so that you don't get down a road that nobody really wanted to go to.
Right.
All the
Well,
obvious facts,
yeah,
you know,
communication
right
is the
there.
key, isn't it, here?
Yeah, it really is.
I
You've got
mean,
to communicate. That's the executor's job because most of the information is already laid out on what to do, hopefully. And you just need to make sure everybody's communicated with so they understand what's going to happen. What are the timelines about what's going to happen? How if there's courts involved, if there's wills, if there's trusts, if there's that document like the From the Heart Journal that we go through with our clients, um, then you have all those documents together. So that's kind of the other thing is locate all the necessary estate documents, like the ones I just mentioned. Um, Anything else where you that will help determine where things are, the property documents, those kind of things, get those. Now, if there's a letter of instruction from your person, that's so important and so great if they have sat down and done that. Um, and so get that letter of instruction. Make sure you read through the documents that you've collected. Make sure you get all the financial institutions, uh, life insurance company information that the estate might be involved with. If there's an estate lawyer, if there's a trust at that same lawyer, maybe there's a trust at a different lawyer, maybe there's a trust at a certain bank. Trust can be set up in a lot of different ways. So find out who is kind of the custodian of those trusts, so you can have a good conversations with them. And here's one thing that people forget to start off with: take good notes while you go. When you start talking to those banks, you start talking to those insurance companies, make sure you take good notes. Write down when you talk to them, the date, the time, and the person. And so if you have the date, time, the person, most of those companies record the conversations. So if they told you something that you didn't understand, or you understood differently than what they understood, they can go back and listen to the recording and say, "Oh yeah, that's what our person told you. Sorry about that. We'll make it right." So
yeah.
that's a really good thing to have is the date and time and the person name. So,
Yeah, that's good
um,
advice. That's really good advice. And of
yeah.
course, even before you reach this point, if you're the person who's setting up your will and trust and things,
Mhm.
let whoever will be the executor know and communicate with them beforehand. And if you're the executor, make sure
Yes.
you ask questions before that person passes, right?
Yeah, make sure you identify who you are, what your
Yeah.
role is,
Yes.
why you're communicating with them. And so here's the thing that will help you along the way with the banks and any financial institution is having those death certificates because
Yes.
uh, a lot of them are going to want original death certificates. So you're going to need like 10 to 12 of them. Typically, you get them from the funeral director. They have them. They can make extra copies, so they can help you with that because they can sign them and verify them. So it's
Yeah.
a really great thing to have those
Yeah.
death
And you need an
certificates,
original copy, not a
original copy.
photocopy for a
No,
lot of reasons. And people think, well, they cost, whatever, 10, $20 each to get a copy.
doesn't matter.
Uh, uh, you're going to want them. It
You don't
doesn't
want them.
matter because, and you think I'm only going to need like 4 or 5. And
No.
then you might end up needing 10. And that's what happened with my grandfather when he passed. is
Yes.
my dad inherited the land with the Verizon tower on it. Verizon needed a copy of the death certificate. The
Right.
CD, to get the CD out, the bank needs a copy of the death certificate. For the checking account, it might be at a different bank. They need a copy. And
Oh, right.
sometimes car dealerships, to get loans transferred over, anything that was in that person's name, if you need it transferred to your name or another name, they're going to need to see a copy of the death. They're going to want an original typically to have of the death certificate. So
Yeah, they are. And I had a client, her husband passed, Doris, and he had 10 different mutual funds. He just
oh
scattered money all over the place.
wow,
He had 11 different bank accounts, and
yikes.
so, it took almost, uh, a year to get everything straightened out, because he hadn't set things up when he set them up to have beneficiaries named on some of those accounts.
Wow.
So we had to verify that they were married, so you might need marriage certificates.
Hmm.
If 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 it's a second marriage, you might need the first marriage certificate, the divorce certificate, and the new marriage certificate,
That's
because
crazy.
of, maybe there's, some kind of dual role on a
Hmm.
joint account or something that's weird. So you're going to need all those kind of documents, to make sure that you can verify that you're in control of this estate and this person is not here to make those decisions and answer the phone.
Yeah.
So that's really important.
Yeah.
And,
So
and speak
err on the side of ordering too many copies of the death
or too many
certificate
copies.
rather than not enough, because then it's a pain. Then you have to go to the courthouse after the fact.
Yeah.
It can be a lot harder. So
That they will take copies of marriage certificates and divorce certificates.
that's good. That's good.
So
Death
you
certificates,
get a
however,
break on
mostly
that.
they want an original copy,
That's
which
right.
you'd have to go to a courthouse to get. So yeah.
Yeah, and they have to be mailed in to them, and so
Mm.
it it slows everything down. So
Yep.
that's the big part about being that executor is, people understand it's going to take time with financial institutions. They're
Yeah.
bureaucratic agencies. They have fiduciary responsibilities, just like that executor who does have fiduciary responsibilities. Is they have to make sure that they're giving the money to the right people.
Yeah. If you're a beneficiary of anything after someone passes, or
Yeah,
an inheritor, these things take time. You're not going to get your money
right.
within a week. It's going to take time.
It's going
And
to take time.
especially if it goes to probate court, then it takes a lot of time. But hopefully, if you have it set up properly beforehand, which I know you work
Yes.
alongside estate planning attorneys to help your
Yep.
clients and recommend good ones for them, so they have things set up to hopefully avoid probate when they can. That way their loved ones aren't left with a mess and don't have to wait, to access things as
That's
long.
right. Yeah, and, so some of the some of these companies will start sending checks. There may be checks in the mail before your person passes. You need to make sure you keep the bank accounts open for that person, because you have to cash them
Yep.
in their name. So you can go to the bank and put them in, with that when you have the executor and the death certificate, you can get those in there, but you got to have a bank account to put them into. And once you close an account in the person's name, you can't open one in a
Not
person that's
after they're
passed.
passed. You can't open an
Yeah,
account in a dead person's
no,
name, even with
no,
the death certificate or a birth certificate. It won't work.
right.
So you're
Doesn't work.
right. And that actually happened with my grandfather.
Did it?
Yes, Verizon kept sending checks to them because they kept asking for more things to fill out for my dad. It took
Yeah,
3 months, or maybe even longer. I think it was 6 months actually, to finally get them to transfer over the payments for that tower to my dad, who now owned the land. But in the
right,
meantime, they were just sending a check each month to Robert Shore, my grandfather. And at some point,
right.
my dad's brother shut the account off because he thought he had paid all the bills. And I mean, it had been months, but you got to leave it open for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, royalty checks are probably on any kind of royalties that come through. That's probably the biggest thing to get changed, hard to
It
change.
takes
Be-
time. It takes a
be-
lot of time to change them. You're not just going to fill a it's more
no,
than the form you have to fill out and then, oh, there wasn't a date and the right location on the form. So
yeah,
you need to do it
right.
again. Oh, we decided we needed his deceased wife's death certificate because her name was on one of the original documents.
Yeah, it was
And
joint
I'm like, the
ownership.
check
Oh
wasn't
no,
cut to her. Her name
right,
wasn't on the check, but somewhere along the way, her name was on there. So then we had to track down her death certificate. And so they
right.
kept asking for things, and the transfer on deed papers weren't the right kind. And so it was a nightmare. But in the meantime, these checks are just every month, the checks kept being cut to my
Yeah,
grandfather. But we ended up having to go to them and say, stop payment on all the checks you've sent to this date and reimburse us now that you've got this figured out. And they did, but it took, it's 6 months my dad waited for that money. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, Tony, that everything that I do for our clients is we get beneficiaries named, whether it's something in the market
Yep.
or any other kind of product, anything, any kind of retirement planning gets done, beneficiaries are named. So we don't have to go through that big, big, long bureaucratic problem.
Yeah. If there's a legal beneficiary designation on the account or the paperwork,
Helps so much.
and then it's a done deal and it's pretty much instant and it just
Right.
alleviates so much of the hassle and back and forth, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yep, and having that filled out. But so obviously, a lot we're talking a lot about documents. So if the
Yes.
person has the documents stored all in one place, or if you're going to be the executor, work with them. I know there are tools out there to store at least copies of all documents, an
Right.
online safety deposit box. It's almost like a safety deposit box online where they can access passwords. And nowadays, you need a list of passwords that are
Yep.
accessible to your executor so they can go in
And
and fix all your accounts. And yeah,
right. And we have access to uh, online recording, so we can put what you want up into that, and then have access to that to executors, right?
yeah, that's
So
nice.
it's
A
it's a
secure online portal for them, where it's
yes,
secure, encrypted, and the
it's
executor can access it. That's
yeah,
excellent.
AES encrypted up and down.
Yep, that's
It's
nice.
secure up in the cloud, so the information is secure,
It's great.
and then whenever they need it, they can have access to it. So if you're interested in something like that, or going through the From the Heart journal, so you can figure out where all your stuff is, and maybe you want to go through it with a parent, maybe you want to go through it with your spouse. It's not too early to fill out the journal. It's not too early to start saving those documents into a place where you can have access to them. Give us a call at 719-210-4242. Visit us online at our website, nolanfinancialpartners.com. But go ahead and give us a call. We'll set up a complimentary consultation, 719-210-4242.
All right. Well, and I think it's so important to, especially like you were saying, some people, he had all those money market accounts or different accounts. When
Yeah.
somebody has, I mean, like my grandfather, he had insurance policies all throughout his life. Some had lapsed, some were newer, some were older. We didn't know which ones were still active. Nobody knew where to access this paperwork.
Oh, right.
So, by the end of your life, a lot of times you've accumulated, oh, I still have a 401k that was at this company, and I have an IRA here, and I have a couple of different bank accounts, and I have CDs over at this bank, but I have a checking account over here. Uh,
Yep.
it can be a nightmare for the executor. So the executor needs to figure all that out, and having everything
That's
in
right.
one place beforehand is that's huge. So
It's
what
huge.
else do we need to know about being an executor? Are there any other tips you
S-
have for us?
Yeah. So now let's talk about the federal government for a minute. So we've got
Uh-oh.
Social Security, right?
Yeah,
So you're going to need their Social Security number, obviously, to contact Social Security, so
sure.
you can make sure that the benefits are going to go to whoever they need to go to, and make sure that that's all arranged. And also you're not, or just turn off so you're not getting a check that somehow they're going to come after the estate to pay them back,
Yeah, you don't
right? So
want that.
you
You don't
just want to
wanna
get it all stopped.
Yeah, you don't want the
Um,
government and the IRS on your back about that stuff. So you're like, "Why would I want it to
no,
stop?" Well, because they're gonna eventually figure it out, and then they're gonna come and get the money one way or
they're
the
gonna figure
other,
it.
and you
They're
don't
gonna want the
want
money back.
that.
Oh yeah,
No, you don't want that in
right.
case, "Oh, we got this money here and it gets spent." So, but there's also, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, survivor benefits possibly. So then you need
yeah.
to
There's
get that figured
right.
out. Yeah.
That's right, and it kinda depends if there's a dependent in the picture or if there's a spouse in the picture, um, so those things can impact that. The other thing, federal is military service, so, the state may be eligible for veterans benefits, maybe a veteran burial, maybe, some other kind of benefits. There may still be some veterans life insurance that
Mm,
comes down through there.
yeah.
So you want to make sure you contact the military's, the veteran side of things, so that you can find out what's there. Now, if they're receiving pension benefits, you need to contact them. Make sure that all any survivor benefits come out of that, or and turn it off so you're not spending money that's not that they should not be,
Right. Yeah.
receiving. And so then in those 1 to 3 months after passing, uh, so hopefully you have access to their mail and their email, okay? So you
Right.
gotta have those passwords so you can check email. If you have death certificate, there's a way to get, the passwords if you can't get it. You can do that. But there may be bills, statements that are coming through
That's a good
these
point. You
types
might have
of
to pay s bill you
contacts.
Yeah, you're gonna have to keep paying bills for that
Yeah,
person if you're the executor, right? Yeah.
you're gonna have to keep paying bills. There's probably
Mhm.
still a place they're living, right? You still have to keep up the rent and the mortgage and all those kind of things, and you want to pay those out of the estate. You don't want to pay those out of your own pocket,
Well, no.
uh, be-
Yeah.
especially in case especially in case there's some kind of taxes involved with it. So you want to pay it pay things out of the estate. Don't pay them out of your pocket just because you can. Um, figure out how to pay those out of the estate. Make sure you notify all the crediting agencies, so people can't access their credit anymore. Notify any credit card companies that are involved, um, so that nobody's somehow grabbed their number or filed a credit card in their name. Those kind of things. Um, so there's going to be deeds and titles to estates, to real estate, to cars. There might be some lease agreements. There might be storage spaces. Um, there's just a lot of things to kind of go through. Hopefully, all that is written down, where the keys are, if for those storage spaces, or how to access them, where they are, if there's a key code, all that kind of thing. You want all those online passwords for all those brokerage accounts, the mutual fund accounts, all those kind of things. Try to gather all those things. If they're still working, here's a key thing: is you can contact their HR department, uh, so that they know what's going on and they can help you with whatever the company has. There may be some life insurance at that company. Oftentimes there is some term life while they're working with a company, so there may be something there that you can work with the HR department and get, so you can help pay those things. Um, so here's the biggest thing: don't do this by yourself. Okay. uh, Work with a financial services professional. Hopefully it's the one that the client had, somebody like me that will sit with you and go through all these things, maybe that has all the documents up online that you'll need to get hold of the various companies and the work department, and where they're working, all those kind of things, so that it makes it easy. And then if you're sitting with somebody that's helping you, you don't get overwhelmed, right? So don't let yourself get overwhelmed, because there is a lot. But if you're working with somebody like myself, you, we can help carry part of that load, right? So the the thing I really want to promote here is get your enhanced planning done, so that when you've named your executor, and then if you're the executor, make sure all that planning is done. Sit down with them, go through those documents that that help preserve family harmony and helps protect the legacy of that individual.
Yeah, boy, when you say preserve family harmony, that's what it's all that's what the communication ahead of time is all about. And as the role of the executor
That's
is
right.
communicating with siblings. For example, the way my grandfather had it set up was not great. He didn't communicate with all four of his children. He communicated with one, basically, that was the executor, and
And
then
that's typical.
the other three were in the dark. And so it created a lot of that family got along great and loving, caring, spent all their lives together. And I saw after my grandfather died, now a couple of them aren't speaking to each other
Oh, no.
because of it. Yeah. Yeah. And that happens a lot. I've heard from other people that can happen if you don't sit your kids down and sit your family down and have open discussions about how it's going. Nobody wants to talk about it, but
No.
it's so critical. Even if you don't like talking about it, you feel uncomfortable, make sure he thought he had it clearly spelled out in the will.
Mhm.
But that doesn't, there are things you forget or don't cover. He had a
Right.
relatively new pickup truck, and, my dad's brother came and just got it and drove it
Oh,
away after my grandfather died. And that was not, then my dad was upset, and it caused all sorts
yeah.
of things like that can happen. Oh, he told me once that I could have it. And then my dad said, no, he didn't mention it in the will. It's really part of this. And then, things like that happen. So you can't just off the
Yeah.
cuff say things. And the executor, so can be caught in the middle too. So you've got to make sure you have your ducks in a row with this stuff, don't you?
Right. That's right. And it needs to happen pretty early. So
Yeah.
for like my father, who's got senility, dementia, if you ask him a question, his answer is yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
No matter what.
no
Right.
matter what
Yeah.
it is, he
Yeah. It's
pretty
got to
much
happen
answers
before
yes.
that part. Yeah.
So I could see where, one of the brother would say, "Oh yeah, I asked dad and he said yes." I'm like, "Yeah, he answered yes to everything."
Yeah. Yeah. I asked him if I could have complete control of everything, and he said yes. So there
He
you
said
go.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's not good. So, and
I
I,
get all the Verizon royalties. Yes. So there we go.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. Those royalty checks are something, and it's funny how no one thought about that except me. I'm like, who? I'm like, when they all got
Yeah.
together and they were trying to figure this stuff out, and I go, whose land is the Verizon tower on? And they all said, your dad's. And my dad said, yeah, mine. And they're like, why is that your first question when we're getting together to talk about everything? Because they're like, we're talking about the land, and that's worth a lot of money. And
Mm,
yeah, yeah, it's a pretty decent sized check every single month, guaranteed for life. It's just like what that's the kind of
yeah.
thing you dream about as a retiree. I
Oh,
mean,
all
that's
right.
yeah, it's monthly income that will be there.
Yeah.
The land, the rent can
Mailbox
go
money is
up.
what we call it.
Yeah, mailbox money. You walk out to the mailbox and go, "Hello, check." I
Hello,
love
check.
that. That's what you want. The more mailbox money you can get, the better.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way to live. Well, we're out of time. Chris, let our
Oh,
listeners know how to get a hold of you.
so they can reach us at 719-210-4242. We've got some complimentary consultations scheduled. We schedule them on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Give us a call at 719-210-4242. Visit our website, nolanfinancialpartners.com.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio.
Join us again next time for another show. See you next week. Have a great time.